Thanks everyone for joining our webcast today. So we are here today to talk about Maximo Everyplace. So let's take a look at our agenda for this presentation. So we'll begin with an overview of Maximo Everyplace and define what its main use cases are. We'll then talk about our other alternative mobile solutions available to us today and how Maximo Everyplace compares to them. Then we will go deeper into topics such as setting up Everyplace, creating and modifying mobile applications, and deploying them for users that are on the go. I will then talk about a specific example of the work order mobile application, and then we'll take a quick look at a demo of setting up some mobile applications using Maximo Everyplace. In the end, we'll again open up the lines for questions. So yeah, let's begin. All right, so let's start with an overview of what Maximo Everyplace is. It is a software tool that allows configuration of Maximo applications for use on mobile devices. So in other words, it provides real-time access and visibility into your organization's Maximo environment for users that are on the go. So for example, some simple use cases would be field technicians who want to look at work that's assigned to them while they're away from their desk, or users entering tickets or incidents for issues they found while on inspection routes, or just labor reporting their hours on a work order in Maximo instead of on paper first and then going back to their desk and then entering into Maximo. So this way you get to minimize your work a little bit and then save your time. So yeah, that's where Maximo Everyplace comes in. It provides access to streamlined mobile applications with controls that are easy to use on touchscreen devices that are widely used today. Maximo Everyplace functionality comes included with Maximo 7.6, and it works across iPhones, iPads, as well as Android devices, with the caveat that they must have connection to Maximo over the internet using a supported browser. So now that we have a basic idea of what Maximo Everyplace is, let's take a step back and find out how it compares to alternative mobile solutions. So IBM does offer another alternative mobile solution called Maximo Anywhere. Maximo Anywhere is basically a set of role-specific mobile applications that can be installed and run on devices regardless of internet connectivity. So that's where it has an advantage over Maximo Everyplace in that you can run it even in the disconnected mode, and it provides control over how often the app connects to what's called the mobile first server, which is basically an application server that helps distribute Maximo apps to mobile devices. So you can control how often you connect to the internet over the mobile first server to fetch the latest data from Maximo. It also lets users record live signatures, leverage the maps and QR scanning functionality of modern touchscreen devices. So it does have all of these advantages over Maximo Everyplace. However, they do come at a cost, both literally and figuratively. Maximo Anywhere is not included with base Maximo, so it does require extra setup and installation, and it does take more development time. And developing Maximo Anywhere applications does have a steeper learning curve, especially if you're planning to provide internal or in-house support for these Anywhere applications. Maximo Everyplace, on the other hand, allows us to convert most existing applications to mobile apps, and more importantly, it is very budget-friendly. It requires no additional installations. If you have Maximo 7.6, you have Maximo Everyplace, and it's easy to set up, easy to support, because it just leverages existing application designer functionality. So we'll see all of that in just a bit here today. So yeah, it does only work on connected devices, but if that's something that works for your organization, then Maximo Everyplace is a quick and relatively simple, cost-effective solution to access Maximo on the go. And then there are also some third-party solutions available that work similar to Maximo Anywhere, so we won't go into too much detail on these today. Next, let's take a quick look at what initial setup is required for Maximo Everyplace. So, as you see, it's not very much at all. There are two things we need to do in order to start creating and using Everyplace applications. The first is to configure viewports. Viewports tell Maximo what the screen resolution would be for the device you will use to view your mobile applications. So out of the box, there are some resolution values that are provided to you, but you can always add new values to the list in case you have a device that's a different screen size than the ones mentioned in the existing viewport. You can just go and edit the viewport domain in the domains application in Maximo and then add your new screen resolution there. So based on the viewport that you select when you create a mobile application using Everyplace, Maximo will adjust the frame to show you the portion of the application that would be visible on a mobile device with that selected resolution. The second thing needed to begin using a mobile application is to create a mobile start center so that users are able to see a more mobile-friendly dashboard when they log into Maximo from their devices. So to designate a start center as mobile, all we need to do is select the Is Mobile checkbox, as you can see here on the screen, from the display settings on your start center template. And that's pretty much it. Once we have the initial setup taken care of, we can now start creating our mobile applications. So the simplest way to create a mobile version of an application is to duplicate the existing desktop application from App Designer and then rename it to use as a mobile application. The next thing you would do is select the Is Mobile checkbox and specify a value for the viewport for your application here in Application Designer. And we'll do all of this here in just a bit. But alternatively, you can also create a new application from scratch and select the Is Mobile checkbox there as well, and then specify the viewport. So just the way you would create a brand new application, the way is the same for a mobile application. You just have to specify a viewport and then specify that the application is mobile. So once you have designated an application as mobile, you will notice that Maximo will change the way it looks. The fields and texts that are displayed on the application will change. The text will become a little bit larger. The buttons will become a little bit bigger as well and more spaced out so that they're easier to use on touchscreen devices. The Select Action menu and the Go-To menus are all removed from the application as well. And then you'll notice that a red border outlines the portion of the application that's visible on the chosen viewport. So what it's doing is it's basically mimicking the screen real estate of the mobile device with the resolution that you chose as the viewport. Parts of the screen that are not within the red frame will only be accessible by horizontal or vertical scrolling on the mobile device. And again, we'll take a look at all of this in our demo today. All right, so now let's talk about some helpful tips and best practices on when we're modifying mobile applications. So the most important aspect of creating a mobile app is to make it just easy to read and easy to interact with on a touchscreen device. So to that end, any fields on the right side of the application should be moved to the bottom of the screen instead, just to avoid horizontal scrolling. Vertical scrolling is something that can't entirely be avoided in most cases, but it's also something that is common across most mobile sites and applications. So that's something that users are used to doing. Regardless, excessive vertical scrolling can be avoided by just using multiple tabs in an application. Now, like I mentioned, the Select Action menu does not appear on mobile applications. Therefore, any actions in that menu that are going to be used from within the mobile app must be converted into toolbar buttons to preserve their functionality. So as you can see in the screenshot here, there is no select action menu, and there are all these toolbar buttons. Some of them have been brought over from the select action menu. And then finally, since the text is displayed in a larger font in the mobile application, you may need to increase the width of text boxes to be able to see the entire information that is entered in the field wherever applicable. All right, so that's now that we know how to create a mobile application using Maximo Everyplace. Let's talk about what we need to do so that users can begin to access our mobile app. So deploying a Maximo Everyplace application is almost the same as deploying any other Maximo application. You just need to ensure that users are assigned to a security group that has access to the mobile application. In addition, they should also have access to the mobile start center, where the mobile application can be listed on the favorite applications portlet, for example. So the go-to menu, like I said, is not displayed on the mobile device either. So users would have to use portlets such as favorite application or result sets on their mobile start center to be able to access their Everyplace applications. And then finally, users must ensure that the Is Mobile checkbox is selected for their mobile start center. This is a one-time setup that needs to be done, and it needs to be done on a desktop computer. The user would log in when they're given access to the start center and the mobile application, and they need to select that Is Mobile checkbox, and that's pretty much it. That's all you need to do to deploy a mobile application for use. Like I said, it's pretty straightforward, relatively quick, as well as cost-effective compared to other mobile solutions for Maximo. So it may not be the most elegant solution, but it definitely makes up for that by being cost-effective and easy to set up. All right, so next, let's talk about one of the key use cases I mentioned earlier. So as you can see on the screen, this is an example of a mobile work order application. This application can be used by labor to view the work that is assigned to them and to report the number of hours they worked. So on the main work order tab on the left, we've basically just stripped it down to show only the necessary fields. And what we've done here, we've brought the actual labor table from the actuals tab onto the main tab, and then the labor can just report their hours right on the main tab quickly on their mobile application. And then we've made use of some clever functionality here by using automation scripts and actions. So you'll see at the bottom here there's buttons for add my labor hours and add another person's labor hours. So what you could do is have buttons and functionality like this. So when a user clicks on add my labor hours, it basically just auto-populates the current logged-in user's labor information into the labor table automatically. And then when they click on the add another person's labor hours button, it just inserts a blank row into the actuals table. So the goal basically is to minimize the amount of data entry that people have to do manually, because it is a mobile application. We don't want it to be complicated. So if you use automation scripts or just clever functionality like this, you can make it a little bit more easier to use. On the right-hand side, you will also notice the other tabs that we've also simplified to show on the mobile app. So the second tab here is the job plan tab, which basically just shows a list of all the tasks on the job plan for that work order. So if a technician is on the field, they want to see what tasks they have to complete, they just come in on the job plans tab and they have a list of all their tasks right there. And then the next tab here is the previous work orders tab, which basically just shows any previous work that was done on the current work order's asset. And then the other tab here is it lists basically any other assets that are included on this work order. So what it is a simplified version of the multiple assets table on the work order tab. We've just moved it on to a separate tab and made it a little bit more simplified and added just a completed checkbox for labor to just come in and select once they're done their work on that particular asset. So as you can see in these screen captures here, there is no select action or go-to menu available on a mobile application when you're using Maximo Everyplace. So again, if there's any buttons or any select or any actions in the select action menu that you would like to the users to be able to use, you would have to make sure that you move them over from the select action menu into your toolbar so that users are still able to use that functionality. All right. So without further ado, let's dive right into Maximo and create a quick Maximo Everyplace application first. All right, so now as our first example, I'm just going to create a simple single-page application for use on a mobile device. So I'm going to use the create SR application, create service request, and I will duplicate that and then convert it into a mobile application. So like I said, the process is really straightforward. You come into Application Designer, you select the app that you want to transform into a mobile application, and then you click on Select Action, duplicate application definition, and then you would give it an appropriate name. Okay, so here's where we select our viewport for the application. So if I click on the drop-down here, you'll notice there's a few viewports that are already here for our selection. I did add this one to the domain, the iPhone Plus, so I'm going to select this one. So this is basically our larger screen iPhone devices. Okay, so now once we have the viewport selected, we will need to, of course, specify that this is a mobile application by selecting the Is Mobile checkbox. And we hit the OK button here. And it'll just take a quick few seconds. All right, so once Maximo has created the mobile application, you'll notice that it instantly just reloads itself and looks completely different. You'll notice that the text is a little bit bigger, the screens are spaced, the text or the fields are spaced out differently, the labels are at the top, and the text boxes are below the labels. So Maximo just kind of makes it a little bit more user-friendly for mobile devices. Another thing you'll notice is this red border that I talked about that shows up here. So this is basically framing the screen based on the resolution that I've chosen for my iPhone, the Plus devices. So if I did change the viewport, you will notice that the red frame is going to move around based on what viewport I select on the screen. So it basically just tells me if I was on a mobile device, this is the portion of the screen that I will be able to see. So it kind of gives you an idea of how wide your columns or your sections should be in order to avoid horizontal scrolling or vertical scrolling. So I'm going to select iPhone Plus, and I'll just save that. Okay, so right now this looks a little bit more complicated to be used on a mobile device. So I'm going to make it, strip it down to just so we have only the necessary fields that I think that users would require to fill in right away on their mobile devices. and then submit the SR. So I'm going to go ahead and delete a few fields and move some of them around just to make this a little bit more mobile friendly. So I'll get rid of this attributes table. And then I'm going to, again, take some of these fields and move them over to the left of the screen. Even though I can, my red frame is all the way to the right, so none of my screens or none of my sections are outside my frame, so the users will not need to scroll horizontally. I can still move the fields around a little bit just to make it look better on a mobile device. So move my classification over to the left side. And I'll just get rid of some more fields that I don't think are required. So now that I've done all that I needed to move or change, I think that this looks good. At this point, I can go ahead and try and see what this application would look like. So I'm going to save my application definition. And now what I would need to do is, because I'm logged in on a desktop right now, I can access this application. But for mobile users, I would have to add it to the Mobile Start Center in a favorite applications portlet, for example. So I'll do that right here. I have a Mobile Start Center set up on my Maximo already, so I'm going to take this favorite applications portlet, and then I will add my application to this portlet. Before I do that, I'm just going to sign out and sign back in so I have access to the new application because I just created it, and the permissions transferred over from the existing SR application. So you just have to sign out and sign back in to let the permissions take effect. Okay, so here I'm going to look for my mobile app. All right, so now let's pretend that I'm on a mobile device. So I can go in, because I'm on a desktop, it's still showing me a desktop Start Center, but I can go into my mobile Start Center here, and you'll notice right away it looks a little bit different. There is no go-to menu anymore. The text looks different. So this is for a mobile device. So now I will go into my Create Service Request application. And so here is what that would look like on a mobile device. So like I said, pretty simple. You don't have any extra buttons or anything that you would see on a desktop application. The go-to menu isn't there anymore. And I've kind of stripped the application down to just the bare minimum fields that I would require the mobile users to fill in. And so yeah, if I come in here and I wanted to submit an SR, I would just basically fill all the description. So again, you can make this as simple as you want. You can change these buttons to not have all of these different lookups. You can only choose to have just the select value lookup and not the other shortcuts here. You can make fields required or read-only just the same way you would in a normal Maximo application. You have all of that functionality still available to you. It just looks a little bit different, that's all. So yeah, at this point, if I'm ready to submit my SR, I would just go ahead and click the Submit button, and that's pretty much it. So here, again, you can get more creative, change this dialog if you want, remove some buttons. If you don't want people to have access to be able to view the service request, you can remove that permission as well. So yeah, you can kind of play around with all the same functionalities that you have for Maximo regular applications, and see what you can add for your mobile application. So that was a very simple example of just a single page application that you can convert to a mobile application. The next thing I want to try here is also to quickly create a multi-page application. So I'm going to go back to my standard Start Center. And this time I'm going to choose, so the example that we talked about before for labor or field technicians to be able to see the work that's assigned to them while they're out in the field, let's create an application for that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the Activities and Tasks application in Maximo, and I'm going to convert this one to a mobile application. So as you can see, there's all these work order activities and tasks here, and it has the work order related information down to the task level and the labor, material, all of that, all of those plans and actuals. So I'm going to create a simpler version of this application for use on a mobile device. So again, the way we start is by going into our application designer. And here I'm going to go into my activity application and click on the Select Action menu, duplicate application definition, and it's just going to take a few seconds because it is a fairly large application. Okay, so now I can rename it. Just put EP for Everyplace at the end. All right, again, I would select my viewport and then click on the Is Mobile checkbox. So just as I do that and I save the application, you'll notice that it now looks a little bit different, but it still is pretty busy. It has a lot of tabs and fields. For a mobile device, it's a little bit busy. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to simplify this. I'll get rid of all the tabs that I don't want to use on a mobile device. So I'll get rid of the Service Address tab, get rid of the Maps tab. I'll also remove the Related Records tab here. And then I'll remove, from the Log tab, I'll remove the Communication log. And then because I do have some information on the Plans and Actuals tab that's on the Resources tab as well, I'm going to get rid of this tab here. All right. So I've gotten rid of the tabs that I didn't want. There's still some information here that I don't need, so I'm going to make it a little bit more simpler. I'll get rid of my Advanced Search bar because I don't want users to be able to just search for records on their mobile application. So you can delete this entire search menu. And again, on the List tab, right now, because I'm using that iPhone wide screen or iPhone larger screen viewport, I still am avoiding all my side scrolling. So I'm good there, but I do want to make it a little bit more simpler so I can kind of delete all of the fields that are not necessary on the List tab. All right, so now that we have somewhat of an application that looks somewhat like what we would want on a mobile device, we can go ahead and start testing it on our mobile device to see what it would look like. So let's go and add it to our Start Center so we can see what our changes look like. So again, the same thing, we would come into our mobile Start Center and add it to our favorite applications, or you can create a results set that uses a query that just takes the users, as they click on the one of the rows in the results set, it takes them to that record in the application directly. So you don't always have to use the favorite applications portlet. I'm just going to add it here because it's quicker. Okay, so I look for my activities and tasks, mobile application. Okay, so now I can go into it. Oops, oh, I do not have authorization because I just created this application. So like I said, I need to sign out and sign back in for the permission to be granted. So now when I go into my mobile application, this is what it looks like. So you'll notice a little bit simpler. I deleted some of the information from the list tab just to make it more user-friendly. So if I now go into one of my work orders here, or sorry, activities, you'll notice all the tasks and the different tabs look a little bit different. So the one thing that we talked about in our best practices slide was that you can increase the size of your text box fields just so you can read the entire information in it, because when you change the application to become a mobile app, Maximo does change the fonts and the sizes that are displayed in these text boxes. So it is always a good idea to increase the size wherever needed, just to make it a little bit more easier to read. So this kind of gives you an idea of where you would start to edit your application. This is by no means a great mobile application yet. It still has a lot more buttons and a lot more fields that you can get rid of. There's no select action menu, so you'll notice that anything else that you need, you will need to bring it down to this toolbar. So there's a lot more room for progress in this application, but I created an application from this Activities and Tasks desktop app that looks a little bit better, just to show you guys how it would look. So I'm going to go into that. That's my demo application here. So again, it is the same Activities and Tasks application. I just wanted to show if you do edit it and make it a little bit more user-friendly, this is what it would look like. So you can get rid of all your extra fields, extra tables, the parent attributes and the failure codes table, all of that. If you don't need that on a mobile device, I got rid of a lot more tabs here. So the services and tools, if you don't need to use those, you can get rid of them. Again, in the details for your tasks or your labor records, you can remove some fields from there, remove some buttons as well. And then on your toolbar at the top as well, I got rid of some of the buttons that are not necessarily needed on a mobile application. So that's really how you would edit a mobile or Maximo Everyplace application. Again, like I said, pretty straightforward. There's nothing that's new per se. If you are used to editing applications in App Designer, it's all very similar to that. So the last thing I want to quickly go over before we open up the lines for questions is if you want to add one of your select action options to your toolbar button, all you would do is come into your App Designer. Again, this is nothing new, so if you already are familiar with the process, it's the exact same. So if you have a select action option that you want to add as a toolbar button, all you would do is note the key value from here, and then you would come in to your select action menu, add modified toolbar, and you would add a new row and just select your element type as option, and then your key value for your select action option that you're adding as a toolbar button. And then you can provide a position where you want it to be visible on the toolbar, and then if you have a specific logo image, you can enter that here, and then you can specify what tabs you want it to appear on your mobile application. So again, the standard way to add a toolbar button, nothing different here, but that's pretty much all. So yeah, that's all for the demo. I will now take any questions if you guys have, and we'll open up the lines for questions.